Okay, get this. Picture this. It's 1986, and there's this young guy. They called him Sunshine.
Sunshine.
Yeah, Sunshine. And he's found dead in a parking lot,
Oh, wow.
surrounded by, like, a whole bunch of weapons.
Really?
Yeah, you'd think open and shut case, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
But this is John Phillips. He was 19 years old,
Okay.
and his death is anything but straightforward.
Wow. That is interesting. So what makes it so strange?
It's just the whole scene is so strange. It doesn't add up.
Well, yeah, I mean, what do you mean? Like, what kind of weapons are we talking
We're
about?
not talking about just like, oh, he had a handgun.
Right.
It was multiple firearms,
Oh,
knives,
yeah.
ammunition.
Whoa, oh my God.
Like it's like something out of a movie, almost staged.
Uh,
Even Captain John McCoy, he investigated the case later.
okay.
He talked about it. He said it had a dramatic flair.
Like it was set up or something.
Exactly, and that's why we're doing this deep dive today
Yeah, makes sense.
into this cold case from Rhode Island.
Wow.
It's been decades.
Decades, huh?
We're going to try and figure out like what the witnesses said,
All right.
the evidence, and everyone who's been trying to get justice for John for so long.
Yeah.
Our main source for all of this is default.mp3ywohan3ijk jkjo 71d1d640c new 1d64bb7v500 276799798.mp3,
Okay.
which is interviews with the family, investigators, and like key people.
Okay, so it's firsthand accounts from a lot of people involved.
Exactly, and it really brings the case to life.
Okay.
But before we get into, all the nitty-gritty of the investigation,
Yeah.
let's talk about John.
Okay.
Who was he? What was he like?
Well, from what I gathered from the source material, he seemed like a really good kid,
Okay.
full of energy,
Mm-hmm.
always willing to help.
Okay.
And, the nickname Sunshine, I think, really says a lot about his personality.
Right.
He loved fishing.
Oh.
He seemed to have a really genuine warmth about him.
But he had his struggles too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Like a lot of young people.
Oh, yeah.
He had dropped out of high school,
Mm.
and he was dealing with his parents' divorce.
That's tough.
It's really hard, yeah. But he seemed to be getting back on track.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, he had a full-time job in construction,
Okay.
and he seemed to be finding his way.
So that's what makes the whole suicide thing so weird.
I mean, yeah, if he was turning his life around.
Right.
Yeah.
Why would he?
It doesn't really add up.
So how did the police approach the case originally?
Well, they pretty quickly connected the weapons that were found with John to a house break-in.
A break-in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it was reported by this guy named Richard.
Richard.
Yeah, he was an acquaintance of John's.
Okay. Did they know each other well?
It seems like they knew each other through a group of friends, kind of.
Okay.
Wow.
So was this break-in at Richard's place?
Yeah, it was at his house.
Oh, okay.
And the police figured that, John had been at a party at Richard's.
Mm-hmm. And then after went back to the house, stole the weapons, and then, for some reason,
Yeah.
took his own life.
So that's what they thought at first.
Yeah, that was the initial theory.
But that's where things get a little fuzzy, right?
Yeah, that's where things start to get a little murky.
Because everyone at the party, they don't all say the same thing.
Exactly. Their stories don't quite match up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So what are some of the inconsistencies?
Well, for one, no one can really agree on when John left the party.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like different people give different times
Mm-hmm.
for when they last saw him.
So right away, there are holes in the story.
Yeah, right off the bat.
Is there anything else that seemed off?
Well, there's this woman, Diane, she was at the party too.
Oh, okay.
And she claimed that John was like waving a gun around
Oh, really?
at the party. Yeah.
Did anyone back her up on that?
No, actually, his friends and family completely deny it.
They say he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, they say it was totally out of character for him. So we have conflicting stories about what John was doing.
Exactly. And that's a big red flag.
What about John's family? How did
Yeah.
they react to the suicide ruling?
I mean, they were devastated, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But they were also really skeptical.
Really?
Yeah, his father, Gardner,
Okay.
he even did his own investigating.
Wow, really?
He noticed that John's shoes had burrs on them.
Burrs.
Yeah, like from plants.
Okay.
And he had walked the same path that John supposedly took,
Okay.
and his shoes had burrs.
Okay.
But when John's shoes were given back to the family, they were clean.
No burrs.
No burrs.
That's strange.
Right. It's a small detail, but it makes you wonder if John really went that way at all.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's Diane again.
Oh, what about her?
Her story about when she got home that night
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really match up with other information they found later.
So more inconsistencies.
Yeah, it gets pretty confusing.
Okay, so we've got conflicting timelines, questionable behavior, And a family that just doesn't buy it.
Right.
It sounds like a real cold
It's
case.
a classic cold case for sure.
So where do we go from here?
Well, for years it was unsolved.
Yeah.
A total dead end.
Really?
But then in 2001,
Okay.
a detective,
Uh.
he had been bothered by this case for years.
Oh, go.
He pushed to reopen it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that gave John's family some hope.
Because they never gave up?
Never. They always believed there was more to the story.
That's good.
Yeah, so what happened when they reopened it?
Yeah. What did they find?
Well, the medical examiner,
Okay.
they changed the cause of death.
Oh, really?
Yeah, instead of suicide, they said pending further investigation.
Oh, wow.
Basically saying, we need to look into this more.
So they admitted there was more to it,
Basically, yeah.
and then Captain McCoy came in.
Yeah, in 2008, he took over the case.
Okay, bringing a new perspective to it all.
Exactly, a fresh set of eyes.
Wow, so what did he focus on?
Well, right away, he was struck by how the evidence and the suicide ruling, they didn't line up.
They didn't match.
Nope.
Interesting.
He really went over those scene photos,
Oh, wow.
looking for anything that didn't add up.
Okay, and what did he find?
Well, think about it. If someone takes their own life,
Hmm.
you'd expect them to be found near the weapon, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But with John,
Yeah.
the way the guns, the ammo, his body, it was all laid out,
It didn't look right.
almost too neat, like someone arranged it.
Like it was staged.
Exactly.
Wow, that's creepy.
Yeah, it gives you chills, right?
Definitely lends more weight to McCoy's doubts about the suicide ruling.
For sure. It raises a lot of questions.
So if it wasn't suicide,
Yeah.
then what happened?
Well, McCoy had this theory
Okay.
that John's body was moved.
Moved.
Yeah, like from somewhere else entirely.
Wow.
And that the whole scene was set up to look like suicide.
That's a bold theory.
It is, but it explains the weird stuff he saw.
Yeah, but if someone staged it,
Right.
who would do that? And why?
Well, McCoy was really interested in the people who were at that party with John,
Okay.
especially Richard, Diane, and there's another guy named Ronnie.
Okay.
He thought they knew more than they were saying.
Interesting. But didn't they already talk to the police?
Yeah, back then, but McCoy thought there was more to it.
More.
Yeah, like maybe they left stuff out.
Why would they do that?
Well, maybe they were scared.
Scared of what?
Maybe of getting in trouble.
Oh,
or maybe
yeah.
they were protecting someone.
That makes sense.
Or maybe after all this time, they just don't remember everything.
Memories can be trickier.
Oh, yeah, especially with something traumatic like this.
So McCoy thought there were missing pieces.
Exactly. He thought they held the key to the whole thing.
But revisiting a case after so long, that must be hard.
Oh, it's incredibly tough.
I bet.
Cold cases are like the hardest to solve.
Really? Why is that?
Well, people move, memories fade,
Okay.
evidence gets lost. It's a mess.
So what roadblocks did McCoy hit?
Well, a lot of the witnesses were hard to find.
They moved.
Yeah, or they just didn't want to talk anymore.
Oh, wow.
Maybe they were scared to say anything.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
He even went to a federal prison to interview someone.
A prison?
Yeah, this guy had been at the party,
Oh, wow.
but now he was in prison for something else.
Okay,
But even that didn't really help.
it didn't.
No new information.
Oh, that's a bummer.
And to make things worse,
Yeah.
important evidence was gone.
What do you mean?
Like John's clothes, the weapons.
On. How is that possible?
It happens, sadly. Sometimes evidence isn't stored properly.
Oh, no.
Or it gets lost over time.
That's terrible.
It's a huge setback for investigators.
Yeah, for sure.
But McCoy, he didn't give up.
He didn't.
No.
No, he kept going.
Even with all that,
Yeah, he knew how much this meant to John's family.
they wanted answers.
They deserved answer.
So what did he do? Well, he did something kind of unusual at the time.
Okay.
He made a Facebook page for the case.
A Facebook page.
Yeah, he thought maybe he could reach more people that way.
Oh, okay.
Jog someone's memory.
Smart.
Maybe someone would see it and remember something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was worth a shot.
Did it work?
Not really.
Oh.
It got some attention, but no real breakthroughs.
Oh, that's too bad.
It was like everyone was staying silent.
What about Richard, Diane, and Ronnie?
He talked to them again,
Okay.
but they stuck to their original stories.
They didn't change anything?
Nope, they said they weren't involved.
Oh.
But who knows if they were telling the truth?
Right, maybe they were protecting themselves or someone else.
It's possible.
That's so frustrating.
It is. It's like a puzzle with missing pieces.
Yeah, and poor John's family.
Yeah. They just want to know what happened to him.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is, and it shows how complicated these cold cases can be.
You have all this evidence,
Mm.
but then you have people,
Right.
their memories, their relationships,
And their secrets.
and sometimes it's those things that make it impossible to find the truth.
Exactly. The human element can be the biggest obstacle.
It's like everyone's holding something back,
It really is.
and that's what makes these cases so sad.
It's true. It's like the answers might be out there, but no one's willing to say anything.
So what do? We have this investigator. He's convinced there's more to it, but he's hitting all these walls,
Yeah, and then you have the family just wanting closure.
desperate for answers.
It's tough. It's like, how do you move forward when you don't even know what happened?
So it's like, what can we do as listeners? What's the takeaway here?
Well, that's where it gets interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
It's like sometimes the key to these cold cases isn't in the official files, you know?
What do you mean?
It's not always about the evidence or the forensics.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about the community, the things people remember, the stories they tell.
Okay.
Like maybe someone out there remembers something small, something they didn't think was important.
Yeah, like what?
Like maybe they lived in the area back then, or they knew someone connected to the case, or
Right.
maybe they heard a story, at the time it didn't mean anything, but now, after hearing all this,
Yeah,
it clicks,
it makes sense.
Like, oh, wait a minute, that could be important.
So what are we asking our listeners to do?
Think back, really trying to remember anything about that time period.
Okay.
Anything at all about John's case.
Like what kind of things?
Like, did they hear any rumors about what happened that night? Did they know anyone who was at the party?
Okay.
Or anyone who might known something about John's disappearance?
Okay.
Did they see anything unusual around that time?
So anything, even if it seems small or unimportant,
Exactly, because sometimes those little things can be the missing piece.
they can make a difference.
Absolutely. You never know what might crack the case wide open.
And give John's family the answers they need.
Exactly. So if anyone out there has anything at all,
Yeah.
please reach out to Captain McCoy or the North Kingstown Police Department.
Their contact info is in the show notes, right?
It's all there, every detail.
Okay, so even if you think it's not a big deal,
Reach out. It could be huge.
your call, your email, it could be what solves this whole thing.
And it could bring some peace to this family who's been hurting for so long.
So it's like, we're all in this together.
In a way, yeah, we all have a part to play.
We can all help find the truth.
Even after all these years.
It's never too late.
Never.
Now let's talk about something that really stood out to me in this case.
What's that?
The whole small town aspect of it.
Oh, yeah, that's a big factor.
It's like everyone knows everyone.
Exactly.
And that can make things really complicated.
Oh, absolutely.
Like imagine you know someone
Yeah.
and you think they might be involved in something like this.
Right.
It's hard to come forward.
It's incredibly difficult, yeah.
Loyalty, fear, all of that gets mixed in.
It's like a web,
Yeah.
You're caught in it.
So it's like the truth is there, but people are afraid to say it.
They're scared of the consequences, what people might think.
Yeah, what do I do to their relationship?
Their reputation.
Their whole life.
It's a lot to risk.
It is.
And that's what makes these cases so hard.
It's like a wall of silence.
It really is. And it's heartbreaking because, someone out there knows something,
They have the answers.
but they're just not talking.
So what can we do? How do we break through that?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
It is.
How do you make someone feel safe enough to come forward?
Right, without making them feel like they're betraying everyone.
It's a tough balance.
It is.
It's not just about finding evidence. It's about understanding people.
Their motivations.
Their fears, their loyalties.
It's like you have to be a detective and a therapist at the same time.
Almost. Yeah, you have to get inside their heads.
So let's do that now with our listeners.
Okay, I like this.
We've talked about the case, the evidence, the people involved.
Right.
Now let's think about it. Really think about it.
Engage with it.
Put yourselves in the shoes of those people who were there that night.
What would you do?
What would you see?
What would you be afraid of?
Maybe something we said sparked a memory for you.
A connection you didn't make before.
Something that seemed small at the time.
And now it's like a light bulb goes off.
It could be anything.
A conversation you overheard.
A rumor.
Someone acting strange.
Just trust your gut if something feels important.
Even if you're not sure why.
Reach out. Tell someone.
Captain McCoy, the police, anyone.
Your input could be the missing piece.
It could be what solves this whole thing.
This isn't just a case. It's a real person.
John Phillips, a young man with his whole life ahead of him.
And his family, who just want to know what happened.
They deserve closure.
So we're asking you, our listeners, to help us.
Help us find the truth.
Help us bring John's family peace.
Because sometimes all it takes is one voice,
One person
one little detail
to change everything.
to bring justice.
So let's do this together.
Let's solve this case.
Let's find out what happened to John Phillips.
And let's give his family the answers they've been waiting for.
It's crazy to think that this is still unsolved, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's really sad.
Like John's family, they've been waiting for answers for so long.
It's got to be tough to live with that, not knowing.
And it's not just them, it's the whole community too, right?
Yeah.
Like a case like this, it affects everyone.
It does. It really does. Especially in a small town like that where everyone knows each other.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, like the whole small town thing. How does that play into all of this?
Well, I think it makes everything more complicated for sure.
How so?
Well, think about it. Like, you grow up with these people, you know?
Yeah.
You go to school with them, you see them around town.
You trust them.
Exactly. There's a sense of community, of shared history.
But then something like this happens.
And it throws everything off balance.
Because suddenly these people, they might be involved.
And how do you deal with that?
It's got to be hard, right? Like, who do you trust?
Exactly. It's like your whole world gets turned upside down.
And then there's that pressure,
Yeah.
like the pressure to stay silent.
Oh, absolutely. The code of silence, it's a powerful thing.
Because you don't want to betray
Yeah.
your friends, your
Mhm.
family. Right. And you don't want to be the one to rock the boat.
And so the truth gets buried.
Under layers of fear and loyalty.
And it's the family that suffers.
John's family, they're still waiting for answers all these years later.
And they might never get them, not if no one speaks up.
It's like, what would it take? What would make someone finally break that silence?
That's the question, isn't it?
It's like, how do you reach those people? How do you make them see that the truth is more important than protecting someone who might have done something terrible?
It's not easy, that's for sure.
It's got to be one of the hardest parts of investigating a case like this.
It is, because it's not just about the evidence, it's about understanding human nature.
The psychology of it all.
The way we think, the way we act, the choices we make.
And the things we're willing to do to protect the people we care about.
Even if it means hiding the truth.
And that's what makes this case so powerful, I think.
Because it forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths about ourselves,
Like, what would we do in that situation?
Would we speak up?
Or would we stay silent?
It's a question we all have to ask ourselves.
And maybe, just maybe, by asking that question, by really thinking about it,
We can start to break down those walls of silence.
and help bring justice to those who have been waiting far too long.
That's our hope, at least.
So to our listeners, we're asking you to keep thinking about John Phillips, about his family, about the unanswered questions in this case.
And if you have any information, anything at all, no matter how small you think it is,
Please reach out to the authorities, share what you know.
you could be the one to make a difference to finally bring this case to a close.
And maybe, just maybe, by working together, by sharing our memories or thoughts or insights,
We can finally bring some peace to John's family and to the community that has been haunted by his death for so long.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and please keep John Phillips in your thoughts.
And never underestimate the power of a single voice, a single piece of information.
It could be the key to unlocking the truth and finally bringing justice to those who deserve it most.